The Independent National Electoral Commission and some civil society organizations have called on political parties and their presidential candidates to focus on issue-based campaigns ahead of the 2023 general election. Both INEC and the civil society group say political discourse must be centered around issues affecting the average Nigerian, like insecurity and poverty. And also the manifestos of each candidate should state in simple and clear terms how these problems will be addressed. They say this will enable Nigerians vote for the right candidate. Well, joining us via Zoom is strategist and policy analyst and the group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me, Veronica.
Thank you very much. Now, a majority of persons will say what Nigerians really want is not much. They just want some basic amenities, light, water, and just give them that enabling environment for them to thrive. But then again, some would say that good governance is more than that. And so a majority of Nigerians do not really understand what good governance is about, the indices, and what they should look out for to know that this is what they want and make demands of these persons come 2023. So if we could begin from that point, you basically breaking it down for us what good governance represents.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Well, good governance could be broad, but to put it in context due to time, I think, like you rightly mentioned at your startup, the needs of Nigerians mostly is sadly so at this point in time of our history, over 60 years of post-independence, basic amenities. So if you start from there to say over 60 years later, do we have all these basic amenities across the country? And the answer is no. So to that extent, the needs of citizens are those basic amenities. What are the basic amenities like water, road, healthcare facilities, education facilities, etc. But good governance is beyond that. Good governance starts from leadership. Leadership that has integrity, leadership that has capacity and the competence, and a leadership that listens to the people. Because only when leadership listens to the people could they be able to deliver what you can contextualize as good governance. Of course, across board, good governance means also being accountable, delivering the good dividends of democracy. And looking back 4 years, 8 years, or looking ahead 4 years, 8 years and beyond, people can see progression, people can see development. It is sad that for the past 22 years since the return of Nigeria to democracy, we are still hearing sound bites during campaigns about delivering roads, delivering water, and education. Sadly so. We were thinking by now, as of 1999, people were looking forward to, at this point in time, 22 years later, to look at long-term, sound, socio-economic developments happening in the country. So let us say good governance, starts from there. And if you can allow me, I would like to read for us, just to put it in context, a quote from Lee Kuan Yew, one of the greatest leaders of our time. He says, and I quote, a nation is great not by its size alone. It is the will, the cohesion, the stamina, the discipline of its people, and the quality of their leaders. I repeat, the quality of their leaders, which ensures it an honorable place in history. And to that extent, good governance is very critical for nation building and for nation development.
All right, let's take it on from there when it comes to the issue of good governance. Quality leadership or quality leaders, if we have to embody it in the human beings that we have, of course, Nigeria is not lacking in the quality of human beings who are thoroughbred professionals, who even are consultants to governments and institutions across the world. What do you think is the biggest challenge of governance in Nigeria, where, like you said earlier, even right from independence, the same issues that Ahmedu Bello or Nnamdi Azikiwe or Obafemi Awolowo, whatever they campaigned with, we will provide education, we will provide housing, health, infrastructure, is the same thing Shagari used also in 1979, is the same thing all of them used. In 1993, it was the same thing. 1999 is the same thing. We're still talking about the same thing today. But what do you think is the biggest challenge of governance in Nigeria?
Well, to my mind, like you rightly say, we have the right quality of leaders, but the issue is, have we been consistently having those type of leaders at the helms of affairs? Question number one. Question number two is, have those leaders been able to have what I call the support system to help them, enable them deliver that good governance? And I'm putting it in context within the realm of democracy, okay? We understand in democracy, we have the principles of separations of powers, for example, and all the layers of processes that enables a leader to deliver good governance. To that extent, part of the issues we've been having right from time immemorial, which if not addressed, will continue to bedevil the development and progress of Nigeria, is what I call the failure or erosion of leadership value chain. What do I mean by leadership value chain? A leader at the top, especially in a democratic system, as good as he may be, can only do as much as he could within his capacity. Of course, within the realm of his powers as Mr. President, for example, or Mr. Governor, he has the laws and the regulations and all the paraphernalia of office to deliver that good governance. But suffice it to say, it has to be a collaborative effort. It has to be a partnership within the leadership value chain. There are people that I call within the leadership value chain the focal point leaders. The focal point leaders are the president, the governor, for example, the Senate president, for example, the Speaker of House of Representatives. Those are the focal point leaders sitting at the top driving things. But they can only drive those things with the support of other leaders across the strata, vertical and horizontal. If there's a failure within that leadership value chain, whereas that leader may not have the leverage to enforce or to ensure that which needs to be done is done, then you have failure in leader. And based on that, if you'll allow me again, I don't want to put out of context. I will take you as far back as 1947, when the late sage, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, wrote that corruption is the greatest defect of the national courts at that time in Nigeria. That the systems also compound the issues, whereby, as he said, judges were being bribed and people tried to circumvent the system even at that time. In 1950, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, of blessed memory, also wrote, and I quote, "The twin causes of bribery and corruption pervade every rank and department of government." Now, what does it tell us? That this is a long-standing issue in Nigeria. If people at the top cannot be able to enforce people within the leadership value chain to deliver, maybe by virtue of the system of governance or structure, for example. And for the purposes of this conversation, I can use maybe the principles of separations of power, where you have the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. Where a president, for example, or a governor requires that some legislative activities need to take place for maybe a law to come into play. And where there's a disconnect between the executive and the legislature at the leadership level, then at that point, the focal point leader may not be able to deliver. Bringing it back to the executive, the civil service or the public sector is what I call the establishment, or what we call the establishment. If the establishment is not in sync with the focal point leaders, then that leader is what I call an entrapped leader, a leader that is caged by establishment, by the conspiracy of establishment. And you can trickle it down to the society. Part of the issue we have in Nigeria is not just failure of leaders at the top, Mike and Veronica. Part of the issues we have is the systematic failure of what I have been calling the failure of the leadership value chain. If along the layers of the civil service or public service, you have corrupt leaders, whether they are PAMSECs or deputy directors, assistant directors, that sit on their hands or circumvent the system will fail. If there is a conspiracy of collusion, of corruption, the leader at the top may not be able to deliver. One may say the buck stops at the table of that focal point leader, and that is true. That takes me to the next issue, why we are not able to make progress. The systematic erosion of our value system as a country, as a people. Pre-independence, whether it is in the north or south or east, whatever tribe that we were, Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, Yoruba, Ibibio, Jukun, all of us, stealing was a taboo in every society. In fact, debt was a taboo. People could hardly marry into a house that is in debt. That is how strong the value systems were. Fast forward to today. Stealing has become a norm in our society. The people that decide to stand on the path of integrity alone may not necessarily get either elected in office or selected for higher responsibilities. And those that get there end up having to suffer what I call psychological and emotional dilemma of their families, or their churches, or mosques, or their people telling them, now this is the time for you to ensure you deliver for us. Now, this notion, which has become a practice, even in our corporate environment and public sector, nepotism, tribalism, and all that, has culminated or provided the cumulative effect that has drawn us back, to develop as a country. So the failure of the leadership value chain from the home, the parents and the community leaders, the religious leaders, the traditional leaders. This is a country where we had recently a traditional leader, a traditional ruler, awarding chieftaincy title to a known bandit. Now, when you look at it from the overall context, you realize that Nigeria as a nation should recognize that we can have the best of leaders at the top, but there is need for that leadership value chain to sync and synergize for us to be able to make that progress.
Right. So much you have said, and this is leading me to the next question of how did we get to this point in the first place, where we have seen what you have analyzed so far, the erosion of the leadership value chain and system. And then talking about the people, they're being complicit also in all of this that we are witnessing in terms of bad governance. How then do they begin to hold people to account, our leaders to account? Is this why we're having a challenge with regards to the aspect of accountability?
Well, absolutely. First of all, you asked the question of how did we get there? It started with the subconscious erosion of the values from our homes and then our society, when we misplaced our priorities as a people and decided what we wanted are different from what used to be, and that was the beginning of the problem. People may say that also the interruption of democracy could have contributed to that, but I beg to disagree, because over time we have had our spells of democracy up until 1999. And time and again, even during campaigns and elections and after elections, we the people sometimes put people to task in situations whereby, except if they are highly above board, they may not be able to deliver the dividends of democracy. Let's take, for example, during campaigns, what kind of questions do we ask? what kind of promises that are made to us do we question? And how are we able to refuse to take monies that are given to us by politicians when they do? Thirdly, the middle class or the working class, somewhere someone told me that he doesn't believe that we have a middle class in our society, and I say there's no vacuum. I will refer to us as middle class or working class people, have not been really actively involved in the political evolution of Nigeria. The political evolution of Nigeria has been consistently carried on by the upper layer of the political class and the lower layer of what you call the, on the street, it's called the masses, citizens, okay? The ordinary citizens, the Okada riders, the palm oil seller in the market. Those are the people that have been sustaining democracy, coming out to vote, listen to campaigns. When they mobilize, they come out. Whether they have been incentivized or not is not the issue. So part of the problem is the so-called educated working class refuse to be part of the political process, albeit they are either by virtue of their position in the public or private sector complicit in the endemic corruption in the society, or they decide they don't want to go into the sun and the rain and harmattan to vote. So most of us are in our rooms watching the processes on TV and then conveniently criticizing leaders for failure. We have not been partaking. I use this opportunity to call on us. Of course, I see the consciousness have increased for us to come out, because if we have the capacity to criticize, ask intelligent questions, and demand for good governance. But in doing so, in all our positions of authority, whether at homes or offices, we should behave the way we want those leaders to behave.
Right.
That is the only way we can have progress as a nation.
Mr. Yusuf, we need to quickly go on a commercial break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation with you. Just stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we were talking about good governance, and we had the CEO, the Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf, who is also a strategist and policy analyst. And now to the 2023 elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission, as well as some civil society organizations, are saying that, you know what, politicians, those who are, looking for one position or the other, should have issue-based campaigns. And when we're looking at issue-based campaigns, I wonder what your direction of these issues should be for the 2023 election.
Yes, I agree and align with that position that 2023 elections should be about the issues. We should evolve and mature as a democracy, as a people. And to that extent, people we have seen, especially with the turnout of voter registration, with the narratives on social media, on the streets, in our communities, people are conscious more than ever of what the issues are, at least from their own various contexts, which cumulatively, aligns with the situation in the country, tasking the leaders with regards to what to deliver as good governance to the people. So we expect candidates, top to bottom, across board, to speak to the issues regarding what they intend to deliver when elected in office. We want to hear clear, distilled, and refined deliverables, short to long term, short, mid to long term. And I will use this opportunity to say the short to mid term should actually be about those basic amenities that have been the issue, the broken record issues or soundbites of all the political campaigners or candidates. Roads, electricity, water, and basic education infrastructure. Those should be the basic things we want to hear people intending to deliver within the short to mid term. We want to hear within the mid to long term, value added, quality governance that should take us to the next level of progress as a country. In this regard, citizens should ask all the candidates clarity with regards to what they want to deliver, and with the timeline. If someone says he's going to deliver X, Y, Z, within what time frame? 6 months, 8 months, so that people can task those leaders when and if they don't deliver. And also, I want to also ask citizens to look beyond the presidential candidate. I see a lot of focus on the presidential candidate, and rightly so, because of the type of presidential system we run, the democracy we run. There's a lot of power. You can even call it absolute power on the president. And because of that, there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of, focus on the president. But we are beginning, or we have forgotten that there are some critical, office holders that have asked to be elected, and they have been elected, and they have critical services to deliver to the people, and they have been consistently failing, albeit hiding under the umbrella of focus on the president, for example. We need to see more demonstrable capacity in the candidates that are coming for second term as governors or for first term as governors, talking to the people beyond the basic infrastructure provision. What are they intending to do for their people? Beyond the what I call basic template narrative, almost all governors, selling almost the same way, which to my mind is an insult on the intelligence of Nigeria. States are, from different regions, have different strengths and weaknesses. We want to see governors that demonstrate the understanding of their terrain vis-a-vis strengths and weaknesses, and in order to harness those strengths to give more value to the people. I urge citizens to look out for those, strengths and task the candidates with regards to how they intend to deliver, or what they intend to offer, or how they intend to make those states different and special, and make the people, better. Another focus is the legislature, a critical arm of government that has been consistently failing, either by virtue of the people that come to office or by virtue of the process. I want citizens also to listen very carefully to the candidates aspiring to be our national parliamentarians or state parliamentarians. What do they have to offer? What are their antecedents? They should understand that a weak legislative arm of government spells doom for democracy, as we have seen consistently in years, in the past 22 years. Of course, the legislature have also added value, but what we are saying is, could things be better? Yes, they could be better. How can they be better? By electing the right people that have the right capacity and competencies to make our laws. Indeed, people that have the integrity to make laws. What we have today, I think, leaves much to be desired. We have the opportunity as Nigerians to look at the people that are contesting the legislature and governorship election to ensure we have the right people in the right place. What is happening to our monthly subscriptions going to the governor? Some of the hue and cry about the degradation in regions and states is not a function of failure at the presidential level. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the failure at the state level, with due respect. So, in distilling the issues, we want to get clarity on the blueprint and let them come with what we call a roadmap. Short term, 4 years, and that will give us the clarity to say maybe that same party or that same candidate can go for a second term. We don't want to have 4 years plan, and then on the 4th year, you tell us why we should elect you for the second 4 years. We want to see demonstrable footprint moving forward that will say, yes, these people have those things that it takes to lead us at various strata of society.
All right. We often talk about what the right candidate and candidates with integrity and all of that value. I wonder how easy it is to determine what the right candidate or who the right candidate is and who has integrity and who hasn't, especially when they have not been tested before. Everyone comes the same, promising the same thing in the same way through the same channel and all of that. But how will the people be able to decipher, to sieve the chaff from the seed regarding who is the right candidate and who has integrity and who doesn't?
The first thing, it starts from you and I, Mike, Veronica, and us Nigerians. Integrity should start from the person pointing the finger or looking at the candidate. What do you want as a person? Who are you as a person? Who are we as Nigerians? If we know that we will not make demands on the candidates when they arrive in office that will compromise their position, have been issued, then we are moving in the right direction as a people. We will not collect stolen money from our fathers, our uncles, our friends. We will tax them to deliver, and if they don't deliver, we'll look them eyeball to eyeball and say they have failed us and they have spoiled our family name, or they have spoiled our tribal name, or they have spoiled our community. What we have today is, even when, for example, the president or governor will arrest somebody that has committed an offense, allegedly so, it is so shameful and bad. You see people carrying placards to say they are persecuting our person or persecuting our people. If, as a people, this is how we behave to issues, then your guess is as good as mine what we consider integrity. Now, moving on to the candidates, it's very easy to know. Like Veronica, they say if you want to know the potential of a leader or a candidate, look at his past. Just look at the mirror at his past. Antecedents, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why even when you go to look for a job, they ask you to bring a resume. What is the point of the resume? It's to look at what? Track record, pedigree, okay? What have you done in the past, or what have you done, or what are you doing presently, could give an indication of what you could do in the future. None of us has foreknowledge of the future, but we can use the past to hazard a guess or plan or select for the future. So with regards to integrity, with regards to capacity and competence, and let me say this also, while we are at it, integrity is a key success factor, is a key ingredient, but it shouldn't be the only one. We have seen time and again that just having the integrity is not enough to have the leader that would deliver. It has to be a combination of qualities and factors: integrity, capacity, competence, antecedents, political will. All these things should be the variables to be considered in selecting our leaders. From councillorship, we have a situation in this country where people select based on parochial interest, or elect based on parochial interest, and sit down and expect the best from that person. We have a situation where if a fellow stands on a podium in his community and say, I'm a good man, you know me, I've delivered, I'm educated, and I'm doing some community work within the realm of my capacity, the first thing his people are asking, immediate family will say, what does he have to offer? In terms of cash, in terms of material things. That is the beginning of the issue. So looking at it holistically from our point as citizens and the candidate, I think these are the things to look out for, to understand the quality, the kind of people we should vote for, over and beyond narratives, over and beyond campaign promises.
All right. We'll still continue this conversation, but we need to go on another commercial break. When we return, we'll continue. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We've been speaking with strategist and policy analyst and the Group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf, on good governance. And one critical aspect, or some critical aspect I would like for you to touch on, is the aspect of unifying Nigeria, because a lot of persons have said that Nigeria has been divided across ethnic lines. How the persons, the candidates coming forth would be able to resolve these issues? What would you like to hear from them with regards to addressing this issue of the Nigeria being divided across ethnic lines, and how they intend to unify the country? That's on the one hand. Another aspect is the aspect of security, addressing security matters. The talk about state policing has been brought to the front burner for several times. Restructuring as well has been brought to the front burner. So many issues, and even the economy. These are issues that a lot of persons will want to understand how it should be addressed by these candidates.
Yeah, sadly, Nigeria is at one of its most polarized times in the history. of this nation. And it's unfortunate. I think part of what we would like to hear from candidates across board, in this case, especially the presidential candidates, is their views, and now not political rhetoric, their actual views and what they need to do or to address this issue of restructuring. I think that is the fundamental issue. The issue of restructuring has been there, albeit it has been handled with political narratives and rhetorics. We would like to hear the candidates come out clearly with their position and embedded in their plan and manifesto how they intend to address this in the interest of national unity, peace, stability, and progress. We want to hear the strategy and the plan for the candidates, from the candidate with regards to the issue of restructuring. Because the issue of restructuring will also address the issue of state policing, for example. It's a holistic thing if we look at the issue of restructuring. So we'd like to hear the candidate's plan or vision with regard to restructuring. Their narratives also, body languages, rhetoric should be guided to, tell us that as leaders, they will bring that harmony, that synergy, that unity in the country. We would like to see also during campaign their abilities and capacities to rein their followers or their adherents with regards to how the campaign and the narratives of the campaign, are being, transmitted or broadcasted. There's a lot of vile and toxic narratives going on at the moment. One of the most vile and toxic, and maybe because of the leverage on social media. We want to see how the leaders present, how they rein their followers or their adherents or their party members with regards to how they relate within the party, where especially, all the parties may have their factions or internal wranglings, and also across party lines. How are they able to imbibe that mutual respect, that courtesy? Of course, campaign has started, so there will be gloves will be off. There will be a lot of vile rhetoric, but then how they present at the top will cascade down, the ranks of followers and other candidates as well. So those actions during campaign, and of course, embedded in their blueprint, not just socio-economic plans, which to my mind are a mirage if you don't address issues of our diversity, if you don't address issues of national unity, if you don't address issues of national security. We want to see how these issues are harmonized in the plan. We want to see a compact plan. You cannot have prosperity without security. We need to see demonstrable capacity to eyeball the security issues in this country across the region. That will help us or guide us in selecting the candidates that we believe will deliver.
All right. Some people have said that in Nigeria, nothing is guaranteed. Everybody does what he or she has to do to survive. Nothing is stable, nothing is promised and is given, from election promises to the issue of salaries, to the issue of pensions and all of that. So it looks like the future has no security. And when people have that kind of mentality, they begin to scramble for what they can have now as a way of storing up what they can start to sustain themselves. Do you think that is where this challenge is, where the average mentality, the wiring of the mind is that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 days or years or months, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is stable, nothing is for sure. So today I have what it takes to safeguard myself. I do whatever I have to do. Do you think that is part of the challenge? And also people not having self-philosophies or institutional ideologies that can keep them going, whether it is good, whether it is bad, but they keep consistently in that philosophy or in that ideology?
Like, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the erosion of the value system. That is the issue. You know, contentment is a factor of, you know, values. Is a virtue to be content. That is one. Two, I agree. You know, it is sad that you ask, for example, as a government, successive administration, especially let me use from 1999 today, citizens are tasked to be above board, not to be corrupt, not to take bribes, but then the take-home salary cannot take them home, for example. So that aligns to what you are saying. And to my mind, that is another form of corruption. When a leader knows that what he pays his staff is not adequate or is not right to take care of his minimum needs or her minimum needs, how do you expect those people to be above board? On one hand. On the other hand, there is no clear plan by government to show you that if you are working the next 5, 7, 8 years, this is your career progression. And when you retire, this is the plan for you. When the monthly salary itself, there is no guarantee it will come, which is also a function of the National Economic Plan.
Right.
And these are the things we intend to see candidates demonstrate to us.
All right. We will have to leave the conversation here now.
Sorry, candidates, yeah.
Want of time. But we must thank you, strategist and policy analyst and the group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf, for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.